Good evening. Hope you are doing amazing today. Anyone who's watching this live, make sure to drop a comment. If you're catching the replay, hashtag replay. I will tag the people that asked to learn about this, but I'm just checking first to see that it actually went into my Facebook group. So I'm trying that new way of doing it where you have to get the URLs. So give me a second to double check that. While I'm doing that, if any of you guys do see me, drop comments, let me know how you're doing, how your day is going, how your week is going, what you're working on, what goals you might be having. So let's see. I don't see it yet. 1 second. Sorry, I'm trying to do it. I should have tested it earlier, but I've been busy. My son's learning how to lose, part of rejection, so he was struggling with that today. So I spent more time trying to help him instead of actually doing this. So let me see, why is this not working? Okay. I'm not inside yet. Oh, I see myself here, but why am I not going live? 1 second. I'm gonna see, I might have to do another step from Facebook. So YouTube, sorry, a little bit of try to cut this chart out. Okay, awesome. I think it is now working in my Facebook. Yeah, I'm here. Awesome. All right. So works in 1 second. I'm going to first. Sorry, 1 quick second just to make sure this is working out. Okay. All right. Sorry about that, guys. Alrighty, so let's get back into rejection handling. I know rejection is a huge thing. It's a really big fear for a lot of people. So it's here's talks about why we have a lot of rejection. I realized I didn't have my mic. Okay, so we'll talk about rejection. I've had a migraine all day, so it's not been the bright. I'm a little bit slower getting stuff done, so please bear with me. Okay. Oops, I forgot to do slideshow. I hope this works. So let me see. Play from beginning. Try it out. Play from beginning. Sorry, guys, I'm a little bit behind on this one. Just want to make sure you guys can see the full screen. Sorry, guys. No, it's not. All right, 1 second. Make sure you guys can see the full screen. Sorry, no, it's not. Great. 1 second. All right. Hey, Clifford, how are you? Okay, so rejection handling. First, I'd like to introduce myself. I am Fiona. I'm a self-love coach, and I have 16 years experience with management, and I've been rejected multiple times between publishing my book, as well as just obviously with customers in general, trying to sell to them, doing auditions for acting, lots of different stuff. Has a lot of rejection. So, and also I have ADHD, which means I have that rejection sensitivity. It's really big with the people that I care about. So a lot of times I'll feel a lot stronger for rejection when it comes to my family as opposed to a lot of other people. So even without them saying something, the second they question it, then I get nervous and stressed out and overwhelmed because I'm worried about them rejecting me. So I did find that usually I'm more sensitive to it when I'm not doing my self-care and I'm not taking care of myself. So then I've come up with some ways of being able to help support myself to make sure that I don't get so upset when it comes to rejections and to be able to overcome it and work on it and continue moving forward. Because obviously, if you're afraid of rejection, then you're not going to step out and do what you want to do, whether it's build a team for a business, get any auditions, have that relationship that you're interested in, get a promotion, whatever it is that you're having that you're afraid of rejection, then especially when it comes to any growth, right? So we want to stay in our comfort zone. And if we're afraid of being rejected by people, whether because we tell them that we're doing something that they don't agree with or they don't believe in or they don't understand, then if we feel that rejection from them, then that usually kind of causes us to get more worried and nervous about it. So first I wanted to share a quote, and this comes from Don Miguel Ruiz, from his book, The Four Agreements, which I thought was pretty interesting because it talks about the four different things that are very important. Sorry, I can't remember what they are at the moment because I thought it was, I haven't read the book, but I found it very interesting and I wanted to because it talked about one of it was not make personalizing the rejection and to be celebrating and to do better when we know better or do the best we can at the moment that we can. So there's some days, when your energy is very low, like last night, my energy was super low. I couldn't show up to the team meeting that we had on camera. So I was like, I'm off camera. I have my phone laid down on the table so the camera was facing up, but they wouldn't have seen me and I was laying down on the bed. So it was the best I could do at the moment, but it's what I did because I showed up to be there. I wasn't leading it, so it was okay, but it's, that was the best I could offer. Couldn't go on, so I didn't. So that's why it's really important. So some days your best could be just getting out of bed. Other days it could be like full on doing everything and cleaning up the entire house kind of thing, right? So, but when it comes to rejection, which is what we're talking about, personal importance or taking things personally is the maximum expression of selfishness because we make the assumption that everything is about me. So a lot of times when we're worried about rejection is because we're worried about what the other people are thinking or if they say no to us. And a lot of that's because of us. Or if they say no, we assume we've done something wrong. And very often we believe that we're the cause or the problem, or we get afraid, but it's all because we're still thinking about us. And the class a couple of weeks ago, if you wanted to get tagged in it, whatever the case is, I talked about when people ghost us in the DM, and it's very similar because we very often think that we do something wrong when people don't speak to us again, or if they're saying no to us, but it's not necessarily the case. So what you'll learn today, this evening, is understanding why we are impacted by rejection, common mistakes we make when it comes to rejection, ways to help you so you can build your resilience to it and be able to handle it better, and then some actions you can take with rejection handling. So why rejection impacts us? Oh, this one's a little strange. Okay, so biological and evolutionary would be the first section. So it's a survival mechanism. So it feels like to our body and to our brain, rejection feels like physical pain. And the biggest reason for that is when we were nomads or we were living with a lot more predators where it was a lot more dangerous, our safety was in numbers. So if we were getting rejected, it meant physical pain and we had to stay in our group to stay safe and to keep us alive. So very often we get a lot of the stress and a lot of the physical discomfort, and our brain can't tell you whether you're getting rejected or if you're physically being hurt. So either way, it's protecting us by making us react to it. The next step part for that is a fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response. So if we feel rejection, like anytime, if we're again in a situation where we're scared, and fear of rejection is massive for a lot of people. So we often, when we have a fear in us, we get that fight, flight, freeze, or fawn reaction from our adrenaline that we get. So if you're fighting and flighting, it could lead to anxiety or avoidance, or then you might even be fawning for people pleasing, which means you're giving more. You're saying yes to people because you're afraid of them rejecting you. You don't want them to say no. So you might start doing too much for them. You might start giving them everything. You might, for your own business, you might be kind of I know I've done this a lot for network marketing because I was afraid of being rejected by people that I'd buy something from them, they'd buy something from me, or I'd feel bad if they didn't. So it's not the best way to do business at all. But again, it's kind of it really pushes and it really gets that people pleasing put in for the fond response. Avoid freezing usually leaves you isolated, or you can't message people, you can't do anything, or you can't get to that next level in your business or learn and promote because you're too worried about it. And then the next section is your social bonds. So, oxytocin is a hormone that's actually made for bonding and trusting. And when we feel rejected, we don't feel that hormone. So, when we're not feeling that hormone, we start to get isolated and we start to feel lonely. And as we're feeling those things, then we get less and less production of the oxytocin. So, again, we're kind of causing ourselves to go into that rotation, and it causes the rejection to be bigger. So, even though it might have been something very small when we were younger or whatever started, it gets a lot bigger for us as we get older, the more we get rejections because we start to get more nervous, more anxiety, and then we're also dealing with our inner critic, which I'm going to talk about next. So for the psychological impact of rejections is our self-esteem. So if we are already struggling and unfortunately, a lot of the trauma and a lot of our self-esteem, our self-worth, our values, and everything that we have come from us as children and the things that we learn as children. And one thing is we were told as kids, for example, to not climb over some stuff or to not talk to strangers because we need to be protected because we're too young to really analyze and understand. And even with some of the ways that we grow up, to be motivated and disciplined, it's children don't understand that. They just want to play. They want to push boundaries. That's their role. So it's the parents' roles to help us with those things. So very often, if the parents are struggling or they're busy or they don't have the opportunity or they aren't aware of the importance of these skills, then they may not teach them to their kids. So unless your kids get that naturally, then they might be struggling with this. So a lot of people have self-esteem issues from when they were really young, and business is us, and everything we do, like the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. So whether it's in life, with relationships, with your school, with your job, with your business, whatever it is, everything is the exact same way. So if you're struggling with your self-esteem, then going into business, you're going to continue having those struggles and you're going to have doubts and if you have doubts about your abilities or whether you're not good enough or people won't listen to you or people aren't going to be interested in working with you or buying products from you, the more people you message and the more they say no, the more you're going to start to feel like that it is you, and you're going to validate yourself based on what other people are saying as opposed to trusting your own abilities and skills. And that goes along with the inner critic then too, because the inner critic he really focuses a lot on the negative. So I mean, it's good to have that little Jiminy Cricket on your shoulder to tell you what's good, what's bad. But at the same time, a lot of us, when we have low self-esteem or we're struggling, then that inner critic talks a lot more about the negative. And our brain wants us to stay comfortable and safe. So if it knows that rejection is pain, it's going to prevent us from going through that rejection. And it's going to say, no, this is why we cannot do this. So it kind of amplifies the negative thoughts that we have. And again, this one here blames us. So very often with rejection, when it comes to our inner critic, we'll say, see, I told you, you're the reason why this isn't working. We're doing this wrong. We're not good enough. We're not smart enough, whatever the things that you're telling yourself. So that very often, the rejection justifies why we feel those things. So we'll try to avoid rejection because we don't want to feel and fuel that. And cognitive biases. So like a negativity bias, if you're more of a glass is empty type thing, you might weigh more into the negative side. So if someone rejects you, you might be like, well, it's because I'm not good enough. I'm not doing something the way I'm supposed to be doing. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this at all. And we kind of have a tendency to lean towards the negative side as opposed to the positive, which would be like, okay, well, if this didn't work with this person, what can I do instead? What would work better? Is there maybe the messaging, is it maybe you could connect a little bit more or nurture a little bit more? So, and then confirmation biases, again, we're confirming that we're inadequate. So if you already feel like you're not good enough and that people will never buy from you, when you talk to people and they say no, then you're just kind of fueling that that confirmation for yourself as opposed to challenging to finding out why it's changing. Let me see if there's any comments or questions. If you guys have anything, drop them down. I will connect with you guys or I'll comment on here. All right. And I'm looking at this for more about business related, kind of like if you're doing your careers, but everything I'm talking about can go to personal. Now, I know one of the biggest differences that not talking about in this class, and I want to brush on kind of quickly, is when you're rejected from family and friends. That one is a completely different type of rejection than what I'm currently talking about on this one. And if you would love to learn more about that, I'll be happy to talk about it with you. I'll be happy to kind of set up a class because we do get rejected from family and friends quite often for stuff. And even though some of them are very similar, they do have different impacts. And obviously, that one goes more to the first one. Section that I was talking about with the bonds and being social and being connected with family and friends. But a lot of those, because it is personal, it does impact us more, and it gives us more of those emotions. It really fuels that inner critic, especially when it comes to our parents. Sometimes it could be good if it was toxic and you get rejected that way, but a lot of times it brings up a lot of negative emotions and a lot of hurt and pain because we're expecting our families to be there and support us. And when they're not there and they're doing something else or they completely ignore us and we get rejected that way, it causes a lot of trauma that's very difficult to get over, and it builds a lot of anger, and it builds a lot of frustration, and it builds a lot of isolation and lack of trust. So those ones, completely different topics, but it's very important and very valid, and I would love to talk about it if anyone's interested in a class. But in the meantime, this one here is more about us getting the rejections when reaching out to people for business opportunities. All right, and social and cultural influences. So modern expectations. So focus on visibility. So um, a lot of people now with social media, for example, it's all about influencing. So it's about the likes, it's about the comments, and very often we'll come up with hours of content and we'll be like excited about what we've got, the words, the graphics, the choices. We are excited for every part of it, and then we share it, and then not even 2 minutes later we'll go back and we'll check, see if anyone's viewed it. Did anybody like it? Did anybody comment on it? Like if they commented on it, perfect. And then you might go back 5 minutes later, you might go back 10 minutes later, 15 minutes later, so on and so forth. And you might be checking it compared to some of your other posts and content that you've done. Or if you're doing videos and reels, like, if you're like, oh, I did a dancing reel, and then you're checking to see if somebody likes it. And when we don't get the likes and follows that we're expecting, especially if we see someone doing the same thing that we're doing and they have a lot more likes and follows than we do. So very often we'll start to kind of feel rejected by that. Well, it was like, why aren't my followers commenting? Because I have 5,000, 6,000 followers. Why aren't they commenting on my stuff type of thing? So it's very easy for us to kind of get lost in that focus when it comes to social media. And the other one would be more cultural. So, and achievements are very big for modern expectations as well, but it is really for cultural. And there's a lot of cultures that the emphasis is on achievements, whether it's for going to school to be a doctor or a lawyer, like something that's high money, or if you're in business, like, are you like a multimillionaire with a business? Are you influential, right? So there's a lot of emphasis on the achievements and what credits you have, and very often when we don't have those, or we didn't quite get there, or we don't get the promotion that we're looking for because someone else who might have done something a little bit different got it, we kind of put a lot of rejection onto that. And then pair comparisons, comparing ourselves to others, like behind the scenes, the slice of lives, especially when people seem to be doing better, and especially on social media or even just in general. Like when you're interacting with people, when they're out in public, they're going to show their best face first because they don't want people to see them struggling, and they're going to hide that part. So sometimes they hide it by like struggling financially, but they're going to have their car, or they're going to have a lot of stuff and make it seem like they've got money, right? Same thing if they're struggling mentally, emotionally, they're going to mask and make themselves seem like they're okay because they don't want to be rejected from people. They want to feel like they're fitting in. So a lot of times when we're comparing ourselves, that's where we get a lot of the rejections from. So that's a lot of why rejection impacts us. And there could be multiple other reasons too. If any of them resonate with you, let me know. If you have any questions or anything like that, and if you're with me so far. So some mistakes that we're making is over personalizing the outcome. So once more, especially when it comes to business, very often, like, one question for you. If you were to go to a takeout from McDonald's and they were like, do you want to upsize your fries? And you say no, you're rejecting that no, but you're okay saying that, right? And do you think the person taking your order is going to be upset because you said no to upgrading the fries? Right? So very, very often throughout our everyday, we have that yes or no. We're rejecting things, or we ask someone a question and they say no to us, they're rejecting us as well. So, but the problem is some of those we don't care about the outcome. Like, who really cares if you get an upgrade on fries or not? Right? But you care if you try to go for a role and audition and you don't get it. Or you care if you stepped up and asked somebody out on a date and they said no. Or you care if you reach out to someone and say, "Hey, you have a product or you have you have a course that you're asking them, or if you have like I have a summit, I have a class, are you interested in coming?" That's where we really hold on to the outcome, right? Because it's ours, it's us. And we're thinking that the outcome for a business is them not liking us personally when it doesn't have anything to do with us personally. They're just the person's deciding if something works for them or doesn't work for them, or maybe it's not working for them yet. They could be a not yet, not a no. But we won't know if we don't kind of follow up or we ask or we put a lot of heavy emphasis into them saying no. Right. And then we start to, again, make it about us as opposed to making it about the situation to help. So if you're a coach and you're wanting to help someone to come out like with that your program can help them and can transform their lives, can help them with being able to lose weight. And then you tell them about it and they say no. Then if you're feeling that rejection personally, you're more likely not going to reach out again or nurture or be able to kind of follow up with them to help support them until they do happen to say yes or find out why it is that they're saying no. And dwelling on the rejection for too long. So another problem that we often face is when we get rejected, we do have a lot of emotional feelings that come up. So a lot of them could be sad, like, we're upset that someone is saying no to us or not wanting to work with us or not wanting to buy from us or not want like or support us because again, we feel like it's all about us. But we might often feel angry as well. We might feel resentful, grief, frustrated. And those are okay. It's very important to feel any of the emotions that we're feeling, but the difference is we can't dwell on it. We can't sit there being upset and angry. We have to look at why we felt those and deal with them. Because what happens is if we're sitting in that rejection and that fear and we're worried, then we're giving it more space in our brain. We're letting it live rent free, right? We're not collecting any rent from it. And then it's going to feed the inner critic. It's going to feed that brain. It's going to make the brain say, yes, see, we're safe. I told you we're safe. Everything is fine. And then you're going to continue to feel more anxiety and you're going to avoid doing more of the stuff that you should be doing to grow your business because you're worried about it. So feel it, accept it, learn from it, and then move on. You can't sit there for a very long period of time. Sometimes it could be 20 minutes, half hour, whatever the case is. Sometimes it could be maybe a day, but you don't want to be dwelling with more than a day on anything that you're rejecting. I would definitely reach out to someone to ask and talk to them, get support. So another mistake that we make is reacting with anger or pulling away. So again, if someone rejects you, the first reaction, because we feel hurt and we feel pain, our body wants to react. So that fight or flight, like this one here is the fight reaction. We want to be angry and we want to kind of insult that person. Like I talked earlier today, my son, we were playing. It was the first time he played video games. So we were playing Mario Party. My husband thought it would be fun. They would like it. He's never played a game before like that. So obviously he's dealing with a lot of that losing feelings. So even I don't know who plays Mario Party, but you get an opportunity to buy items. So he was upset crying when I chose an item to buy that would help me with my game. So he was feeling rejected because he was losing and he was upset and he was very emotional about it. And his reaction was to fight because he was being insulting. So he said that I was a hacker. And then he got upset with me for not listening because he said that I didn't respond to it. And I was like, you want me to respond to an insult? I'm like, I'm not going to respond to an insult. If you want to talk to me, I'm like, what do you want me to say? Thank you for calling me a hacker. Um, and I think because I didn't respond to him, he called me lazy because he said I should have answered him or I wasn't listening to him. So he's at that age now where he doesn't feel heard very often. So I'm trying to be more conscious of that because I know I do get distracted very easily. So I'm making more of an effort. So part of him not feeling heard could be the reaction or that rejection, and part of him getting upset because he's not winning on the game is part of that rejection too. So his reaction was anger, and at one point he did walk away, which was pulling away to be afraid. So I told him that we had to talk about it and how he felt and why he was feeling those things. And I apologize for anything that I might have done, again, if he doesn't feel like we're listening to him. So it's very important to be able to respond and work with it and deal with it, and to try. And if you do react angrily because of the rejection, then just kind of take a couple of minutes to work on calming down a little bit. Hi, Melissa. Find out why you're feeling that. But at the same time, if you're someone and they're responding to you angrily, so say if you said no to you working with them, then just give it with compassion, because they're probably someone who's struggling with rejection. So if you're compassionate and telling them you can understand and appreciate it, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I very often get messages that people are asking if I need a virtual assistant. They're asking if I need graphics. They're asking if I need websites completed. They're asking if I want to get additional clients because I believe they're appointment setters. So I have a lot of people working on their business that's messaging me to try to get me to work with them so that they gain their business. And I'm saying no. Right? So I can't get upset and angry when people say no to me, because I don't need those roles at the moment, and I don't need a virtual assistant. I don't need some of the different things that people are asking me, or I don't even need some coaches because I have a coach. So very often when people are coming to me with stuff that I don't need right now, I'm going to say no, in a respectful way, but that's still a rejection to them. And we have to appreciate and understand that people are going to do the same thing to us. Because I could message 100 people and say, hey, I teach self-love as a skill. Are you interested in working with me? I might get a lot of no's. I would definitely get a lot of no's, right? Especially if they don't know me and they haven't had an opportunity to see how I work, and if they would even connect with me to be able to have that support. Or they might be someone that doesn't need it at the moment because they're doing okay, or they might believe that they're doing fine and they're not necessarily looking for that. Right. So there's a lot of different reasons why people would say no to us and to reject us. And it doesn't have to do with us personally. It's just that they're not there in that place. But if we were to react angrily or get frustrated or pull away and not talk to anybody and say, I'm not doing this anymore, then we're going to lose out on the people that could have potentially, like the next person could have been the one that says yes. And that's what happens with a lot of business, and a lot of people that struggle, they quit before they even get anywhere because they keep hearing the no's and they don't think they're good enough, and then they stop before they even get to that person that would be that yes. So like a lot of times you can see a lot of people and they're really successful, but there's years of not being as successful, and years of rejection before they got their marketing right, before they got their audience right, before they figured out how to work things. And then they look like they become overnight successes. But it was a lot of hard work beforehand. And those are the people that didn't say no, didn't let rejection get in the way, and they just kept pushing forward. So the next mistake would be neglecting self-care. And this is one of the things that I really notice when I start to feel overwhelmed with rejection or that fear. It's because there might be a reason for neglecting self-care. And with neglecting self-care, I'm not just talking about relaxing and de-stressing, those are very important, but staying active. So a lot of times people aren't being active, they're not eating very well, they're emotionally not well, they're mentally not well, their brain is not comfortable with being challenged, they're not setting their goals. I like to look at self-care as 20 plus different categories. And if you're not working on those, and some of those things could be like being mindful and present. So it could take a couple of minutes, a couple of deep breaths, a bit of meditation, a little bit of jumping jacks or shadow boxing, whatever the case is, to really get you back into where you need to be to focus. But very often people don't do that, especially if they're getting the rejections. They're just kind of hustling and pushing through it. And they're not taking those breathers and breaks to really kind of feel better. Seeking excessive or the wrong validation. So very often when we start getting rejected, like when we start getting a lot of rejections, then we start looking for more feedback, and we might be going to people that they're not in the position. So one example, when I did the public speaking contest at the start of this month, like 2 to 3 weeks ago, when we first did it, there was a mock. So we had to we asked people for feedback, and I sent it to a lot of people. They hadn't responded or hadn't done the feedback, and that's okay. But we also had mock judges do it, and their feedback was based on where they were at the time in their lives and their perspective and what they resonated and what they connected with my story and my speech. So I had one person say they really loved my introduction. I had another person say it was not really good and it wasn't very interesting to them. So and then I had multiple times that the feedback was completely opposite, but it's because they're different people with different moments in their lives, feeling different feelings, feeling different, having different energy levels. And then they didn't necessarily connect the right way. But if you continue looking for the feedback from people that are not your people or not the people that is important for you to connect with, then you're going to get probably led the wrong direction, or you're going to do something that's going to lead to more rejection because it's not the right feedback that you need. So I don't know who the judges were, but if they weren't my people and the people that I'm connecting with right now and the ones who are listening to this class, then it wouldn't make a difference what they think. So it's good to have feedback, but it's good to know that it is not necessarily valuable. Like it's not necessarily the feedback that you need. So, and that's the thing when we're looking for likes and influences, very often or if we have haters, like when we start having people hate on us and they start calling us names and all that kind of stuff, that's a form of rejection as well, because that person hates us. So then we start agreeing with that and confirming with that and believing that that's true. And then we kind of shut ourselves down because we're feeling that, right? So it's the wrong validation for us. The people should be the ones that, like, the best people to get feedback from are the ones who have been through it and who have overcome it, because they're the ones that are on the other side and they're the ones that are going to be able to support you. The same thing for they're the best people to get advice from, right? Because someone who's struggling with rejections is not going to be able to give you the best answer and the best feedback for rejection. So by looking for the right, wrong, and then same thing with relationships. A lot of times, if we are struggling with people rejecting us and we have someone come that treats us very nicely, then you're more likely going to say yes and kind of build a friendship. And that person could take advantage of you and hurt you or do something like to make you feel worse because we went looking for that wrong validation. So that kind of leads back to that people pleasing I was talking about, where we start to connect with people and then we start trying to please them in the business. We try to offer stuff to get them to say yes, and we keep like selling our souls in order to get a yes from them to have them connect with us, when if we weren't worried about rejection, we wouldn't be doing that. We wouldn't care about what they think. We just move on to the next person that we're talking to. So the next one is we avoid growing or connecting to make sales. So if you're afraid of rejection, if you're afraid of vulnerability, you're afraid of what other people are going to think of you, then very often you're going to not reach out. You're not going to do your live videos. You're not going to message the people. You're not going to connect with them. You're not going to ask them if you could like get on a call with them or offer them a call to help support them, because you're afraid of them saying no to you or to buy your products. So then what very happens then is you're not going to be able to make as many sales because you're not speaking to as many people, and then you're not going to be able to learn from those people, because every rejection is a learning opportunity, and we miss being able to learn when we don't actually get put into that situation of hearing a no. So we can't grow without rejection. So what are some ways to help with rejection handling? Because it is, again, it's our brain fight, flight, freeze, fawn response. It's a physical pain that we can feel. Our brain doesn't recognize if it's physical pain or if it's actual the mental with the rejection, like a lot of fears and psychological. So it very often treats it the same way, and we end up getting that rejection and getting that fear. So if you want to handle your way of managing rejections, you need to work on it on a regular basis. There's a lot, it's just treated like a skill. Rejection handling is a skill that you learn, and it works with your self-esteem. It works with your self-confidence. Like all of these are skills that anybody can learn. So even if you are struggling right now with rejection, you can learn to do better and you can learn to minimize. Will it ever go away? No. Are there some people that can hear no 1,000 times and be okay, keep going? Yes. Right? You can learn that too, but it can take a lot of practice. And a lot of the times that people do that is because they know there's others coming. So, for example, if you could talk to 1,000 people, would you worry if that first person says no? Or would you say continue going on to the next one? And the rejection handling, like rejection is massive when you're first starting, And that's where it's hardest to manage to deal with because you don't have as much people to work with, right? You don't have as many people that want the products or to be able to work with you. So every person that says no seems massive because you don't have those numbers to compare it to, right? You're starting off with maybe 10 people as opposed to thousands of people. So when you're seeing someone that just keeps moving forward, they're probably dealing with a lot of people, or it could be an appointment setter, for example, that they're not the outcome, they're not personal. The outcome isn't personal to them because they're just doing a job. If they make the sale, they make the sale. If not, they move on. But where us personally, when we're doing it ourselves, then we often feel that personal rejection because then we feel like they're rejecting us personally as opposed to rejecting what we're doing. And it could be our product that we created, it could be something that we made, it could be something that we're trying to do, and a lot of times rejection is related to that scarcity and not having enough people. So there's a lot of different things that could kind of cause us to like have that rejection, but we'll show some ways of being able to work on it. Biggest thing is knowing that there's always somebody else, and you're going to learn how to speak to them, you're going to learn how to work with them, and you're going to learn, and as you grow your business over time, you're going to have more and more people that you speak to. So then them someone saying no, it's not going to be a big deal, and then when it's not a big deal, then you're not going to feel as hurt by it, and you're going to be able to move forward. So some of the ways to be able to help support you: self-reflection. So no judgment. If you were rejected, then it's a good time for you to kind of reflect on yourself. So was your energy in the right spot? Did you go in thinking that they were going to say no, or that they probably aren't interested? Because if you were to go speak to someone and say, hey, or do you want to buy my self-confidence program? What do you think they're gonna say, right? Whereas if you go in with the energy to be like, "I have this incredible program, it's all about your self-confidence, it's gonna boost you up, and it's gonna make you feel like you can take on anything, and it's gonna make you more successful, you're gonna see the results that you want. You cannot lose by having this program. I think this is the great thing for you." Right? That energy is completely different. So you want to be able to know what energy you're coming with and reflect on the energy you had as well as your emotions and mood. So you might be like, "Oh, I'm okay." So like when I first came on, I'm like, "Oh, I'm tired. I have a migraine." So I know it's not going to have the same energy and it's probably not going to connect the same way as it should. Um, Definitely doing a little bit better, but it does kind of lose that bit of that disconnect as well. So again, your emotions, your energy, everything really needs to be in line. So sometimes when you're getting rejection, it could be a lot of those feelings, or it could be something that you need to like kind of work on a little bit as well. But you don't want to be judging yourself. So you don't want to fuel the inner critic. You want to kind of just say, well, what happened? How did this work out? What was said? What wasn't said? What could I have done better? Right. So once you know better, do better. And it's a common thing. So like I said, with the fast food and upgrading for fries, having people like I get maybe 4 or 5 messages. Not as much anymore, but, like, I'll say 4 or 5 messages a week of people wanting to work with me or me to work for them or to work within me hiring them, for example. So, I mean, I've said no to a lot of those people. Now, I have had some respond back to me, not so much angry, but they had a tone and an attitude, kinda basically saying that I wouldn't succeed without them. So that was again, it was their reaction to the rejection that they need to work on. But at the same time, it's very common. On a daily basis, we're saying no to something. So once you realize that it's not personal and you kinda take yourself out of the equation and just know that there's a lot of other people and that they're saying no because it's potentially not the right vibe or not the right connection for them, and it might not be something they're interested in. So, like, I love self-love. I love looking at it as a skill and what ways to work on it, coming up with strategies and arranging stuff and being able to kinda connect all the dots together. But some people are probably like, "Oh, I don't need that. I don't really care about that." So they're gonna say no. Right? It doesn't have anything to do with what I'm doing. I can still love it and I can find someone that loves it too, but it's not gonna be for everybody, and that's okay. They need to find what works for them. Same thing with a lot of marketing strategies. I could probably list off 30 or 40 different marketing strategies that people have. You probably see the ads, you probably see the posts, you probably have people messaging you talking about them. So there's a lot of different strategies, but you have to find what works for you. right? And any of those strategies you say no to is a rejection. So same thing, people could reject your strategies as well. So recognizing that no matter what you do, you'll never get rid of rejection, right? Same thing for any of the jobs or relationships or whatever the case is. When you're meeting new people, if you're not going to connect with them or they don't necessarily like the way you're speaking, you're not going to connect, right? So that's a different thing said to be mindful of. And change the thought. So a lot of times when people get rejection, they think that's the end and that they failed or something isn't going to work, but that's not necessarily the case. It could be a redirect. So one way didn't work, but that doesn't mean that something else isn't going to work. So again, if you're trying to connect with people to sell products and say, hey, buy my services, buy my stuff, and they're saying no to you and you have a lot of those no's, well, what's the reason why? Why are people saying no to you? What can we do? What can you change? What can you pivot to say get people to say yes? And when I first started my network marketing business for doTERRA, very often I was afraid of people saying no to me. So I was spending a lot more money doing online shows where I could, because people were there to buy stuff, I felt okay and comfortable selling to those people. And and I would be like, well, let me just kind of give you a bit of a price. Let me do this. Let me do that. So there was a lot of different people pleasing that was done in order to, um, in order for me to sell some products and stuff. And then I realized last year that that's not the way I want to do my business and that's not how I want to be. I want to change that. So all the rejection I was getting allowed me to take the opportunity to redirect, to learn and invest in myself, to hire coaches, to learn more about business, to be able to do it the way that I want to do it in the strategy that works for me. So even that didn't mean it was a no and that was done. It just meant that I wasn't happy with what was happening and I wanted to redirect to something else. And that's what we need to think about with rejection is even though you got rejected for one, that could mean that something better is coming along. So to kind of redirect or stay open for something else. But if you hide and turn away and stop or you quit, then you're definitely not going to get what you were looking for. Emotional awareness. So I touched on this a little bit, but the biggest thing to do is to be aware of the emotions. And again, it's you can't ignore, you can't push away any of those feelings that you have because not talking about them and not dealing with them makes reactions a lot bigger. So if you got angry or frustrated when somebody rejected you and you didn't take time to understand why, well, the next person that rejects you, then you're probably going to get angry or frustrated. And most times, the people that we feel more comfortable getting angry and frustrated with are our own family. So then our partners are the ones that end up getting more struggles. Hi, Karen. So they're the ones that get a lot of those fights that we have. So it's very important to be aware of those emotions that you get. So if you feel sad when someone rejects you, find out why. Like, what's making you feel sad? Is it because you think that they didn't want to work with you because they don't like you as a person? Or is it because you don't think you're good enough at doing this and them saying no is proving to yourself that you're not good enough and you're sad feeling that, right? So there's a lot of different reasons why you might feel the emotions that you feel when you get rejected. But if you don't take the time to feel them and understand them and recognize why they're there, like why that pain is there, why that anger is there, why are you frustrated, right? So maybe you're tired, maybe the boundaries that you have set up are not the right boundaries that you need for this, right? So those feeling and understanding where those emotions are coming from when it relates to rejection helps us to make the rejection a lot easier to handle and to work with. Constructive self-talk. So a lot of times it's very easy to have the negative self-talk and we feel the inner critic and we say, this is why this is happening because I'm not good enough. But if you say, well, I've tried it, I tested it, it didn't work, it wasn't the way I wanted it, maybe someone who's been here can look at this. So quite often I go to my coach and I'll send screenshots to be like, what did I do? Like, what can I have done better? And again, it's constructive, it's support to help from a mentor, but then it's constructive self-talk for myself as well. So I'm like, it's not about me, it's about, like this person isn't in the they're not in the space to need me yet, right? So I'll continue working with them, talking to them, have them see the content, and then if they decide that now is the time, then they will come, or I can reach out another time with different conversation. So by having those talks in my head, as opposed to saying, oh, I'm not good enough and no one's going to choose me, then it makes it a different outcome. And I have different energy going to the next person, right? Because if you're feeling upset and frustrated with one person saying no and you go to the next person, they're going to feel that and they're going to be like, no, right? As opposed to being that positive. Boundaries. I kind of talked about this too, but very often rejections, like we need to set up our boundaries to make sure that we're feeling okay and that we're not letting the boundaries get to the personal. So if we're tired, and if you're already emotionally tired and stuff, then reaching out to people is not the best time. So you need to kind of set that boundary to say, no, I can't do this today. Or if you know, like reaching and connecting with people is a top priority for any business because without people, without clients, without customers, there is no sales, there's no money, right? So that should always be a priority. So setting up boundaries to say no to people that would prevent that you from being able to do that work, or saying, hey, I wasn't able to do what I need to do because of X, Y, and Z. So I need to make sure going forward that this doesn't interrupt me, then that can make a difference. So, for example, I can't work as much on my business on Saturday because my son is there. So now my husband switched days with me. So he takes Saturday, Sundays off to work with, like to stay with our son. So I have that time on a weekday to be able to focus on the work that I need to do because I needed to set that boundary to say that I can't do this on Saturdays. So it's very important to be able to recognize and accept where the boundaries are. And if you don't know about boundaries, I do have a class in my group that talks about boundaries as well to be able to help support you. And then strengthening your self identity. When we feel rejected, and again, it's because we feel like our self-esteem, that it's personal, people do not like us, that we are not good enough, that we will never be able to teach people how to do something. They won't be able to buy from us. So very often, a lot of the things that we associate with rejection comes up. So being able to know your self identity, knowing your self worth, knowing your values, knowing what you like, and knowing what you bring to the table will help. And then sometimes it could be celebrating small wins. It could be building your self confidence that would help you to with your self identity. And one of the ways too, one of the biggest things for me was when I thought, like when I was doing my um, doTERRA for the network marketing, which I still do, but I was like a lot of people, it's like, "Oh, it's a hobby, just do it on the side, do it a couple hours part-time, it's just to help give you a couple $100. You just need to do it as, like, a little bit of side hustle." Very often I've called it a side hustle, but then I realized that I was not getting the money, and I was spending more on it, and I wasn't getting the clients that I needed. So when I changed my mindset to be like, I want to be a business person and I want to do it as a business as opposed to doing it as a side hustle and a hobby, then it changed my mind, my mentality of how I was treating it and how I was doing. And then it branched off to doing more coaching stuff. So it does change your identity. So if I was looking at this still as a side hustle, I probably wouldn't be doing a lot of these classes and teaching a lot more of other things or building to connect with that. So by coming up with that self identity, it really helps you to, again, deassociate from the rejection because you know who you are. You know exactly what you want to do and you know where you're going. So it doesn't matter if you get rejections because you're still on that path of where you want to go. So mindfulness and journaling, another thing, self-care, that's a lot of that. Boundary setting, that's self-care. Like a lot of these here are related to self-care. But being mindful and again, being aware that a rejection is everywhere. Everybody everywhere is getting rejected. It doesn't matter. You could be like an A-list celebrity. You could be Tony Robbins, whatever the case is, you're still going to get rejected because you're still going to come across people that are not interested. They're not going to work with you. They're not going to connect with you. So rejection is very big. It's huge. Everybody goes through it. There's not a single person in this entire world that doesn't have some sort of rejection on a regular basis, right? So being mindful of that, journaling your feelings, journaling what you're thinking of, or even just saying if you're worried and scared, just journaling that out, just writing down whatever is in your mind. Because if you can acknowledge it in your mind and you write it down, your brain's like, perfect, you've dealt with it. We can move on. So that would be a good way of being able to write it down. Any of your concerns and issues that you have. If anybody has any questions, drop it into the comments. Feel free to do it at any point. Role playing scenarios, obviously, I love role playing. I think it's so much fun because you get that opportunity of being in a situation and you get the chance to um sorry, my son said something and I looked at him, but it allows you to practice, right? And the more practice you get, the more you do it, the more confident you will be in completing it. So if you kind of role play scenarios where someone would say no to you, then that gives you an opportunity to really test to see how you would react to it and how you would feel. And then once you're like, oh, you're not connected to the outcome and you know it's just business as usual, then that will make it a lot easier for you to be able to make that connection. Building resilience, the one of the biggest things is like everyone says to be gritty and to be resilient. And again, things are going to bother you. Like if you lose, if someone says no to you, it is going to hurt, right? Like even if you kind of are not worried about the outcome, it needs to feel something. But being able to be like, no, I'm okay and I'm going to continue moving forward, and that it's not that obstacle and that challenge isn't going to stop you, you're going to overcome it, then that's really going to help allow you to go further. Because instead of taking like 24 hours, you might even take a couple of minutes, or you might even take like 30 seconds just to kind of be like, oh, okay, well, that didn't work out. Let me move forward again. Right. So it makes it a lot easier to be able to handle that. And then plus with the better resilience, you have better emotional intelligence and emotional awareness. And that will, again, help you with being able to kind of feel your feelings and move on a lot quicker with them, because you'll know how to handle them, especially when you've dealt with the lessons. So if you know that you get angry when you get rejected and you learn why when you get rejected again, then you have that basis of like, well, whatever the outcome is, what changed with the outcome will make a difference for you. So building resilience is super important. Seek feedback, but know its perspective. I talked about that when it came to the common mistakes. So again, find feedback from your mentor, find feedback from someone who's been through it, or learn the perspectives from others. But keep in mind, it depends on what they like, if they're invested into it or not invested into it, how their moods are, how their energy is. A lot of those things are going to play into how you get that feedback. So it's subjective. So take what you want. Same thing with advice. Take what advice, just say thank you. You appreciate the advice, especially if you've asked for it, but take it, kind of like think about it, write it out if you need to, kind of see if it really works with what you're doing or if it doesn't work with what it's doing, and take what works, let go what doesn't work, right? So support networks, mentors, coaches, others that are on the same journeys. So having mentors, having coaches. So if you're someone who's struggling with rejection, having someone that already is working through it and knows and kind of keeps moving forward, that's going to help you to make it a lot easier to be able to learn. And then you can kind of have them lead you in the right direction, kind of hold the accountability, kind of help support you, and have someone that's going to be able to understand the struggles. So, an actor and actress having rejection from trying to get that big scene, or they're competing with like people that are more known or whatever the case is, they're going to have that rejection a lot more different than people selling products or makeup to customers, right? So the rejections are different. Rejection in relationships are different. Rejections with family are different than business, right? So knowing you have someone that's doing the same thing you're doing to be able to work through the rejection would be a lot better. Volunteering. I read this in um, the Millionaire Success Habits by Dean. Sorry, I cannot pronounce his last name. But he talks about, if you're ever struggling with how you're feeling and what you're doing, volunteer somewhere, especially volunteer at a place for someone who's less fortunate for you or than you are. So, for example, at a homeless shelter or a food bank or whatever the case is, because very often, if we put rejection as our value and as our worth and our self-esteem, it's going to be very hard to build those as skills if we're not doing something to help us, right? So to feel better, to feel worthy, to feel like you're making a difference and you're helping. And a lot of times we feel better when we help someone else to feel better. So by volunteering, you're allowing yourself to kind of give back to someone, which always makes us feel good when we can serve somebody, but it makes us also see that we may not necessarily be in the bad situation. So that can help with the value. And the more we have for our self-worth and our value, then the more likely we're going to be okay with rejections, because we're feeling confident in ourselves and we know what we offer. Celebrating small wins and gratitude. If you are grateful, you can't be angry or stressed out. And I love celebrating small wins. So I know with our team meeting yesterday, we talked about celebrating wins, and I had enrollment for doTERRA. So that was my win to celebrate that, because I hadn't had one for quite some time because I've been focusing on my coaching instead. But one of the other girls, their win was they blocked out 10 minutes to reach out to somebody, and they did that. So that's a very, very small, like a little small action to do, but it's such a big step, right? And it's those very, very, very small things that we should be celebrating. Like, yes, it's great when we reach our goals and we're successful, and like it feels exciting, or when people win for a game, for example. But it's the small steps that get us there, like the practices, the blocking off the time, following our planners, just saying, okay, well, I'm going to reach out to 10 people, and actually reaching out to 10 people, whether they say yes or no, celebrate the fact that you reached out to the 10 people. Or if you know that you're someone who struggles with sadness when it comes to rejection and feeling hurt because you are taking it more personal, then celebrate when you got a rejection and you didn't feel so sad. Like, you might feel a little bit sad. It's going to take a while to not feel that. But celebrate the fact that it doesn't feel as sad as it did before when you started to work on this, or when you listened to this class, right? So those small wins are big, important. Do them on a daily basis, or even after, like, do a dance, make it big, make every single celebration, every single step, every single goal on that leads to it a celebration. Because the more you're celebrating, the more excited you are, the more dopamine you get, the more your body's going to be excited, and your brain's going to be like, hey, this isn't so bad. So if you get a rejection, celebrate it. Say, yes, I got rejected, because then your brain's not going to think that it's pain, because you're excited, you're happy, right? Like, how could something hurt that you're happy about? So kind of change your brain to be able to say, yes, I got rejected. And then you'll be able, okay, and you'll be able to do a lot more with that. Exposure therapy. So this one here, if just kind of similar to the role playing, but just getting in a controlled environment. So obviously messaging, connecting with people, it's pretty controlled if it's on social media or in front of people, but just being able to make that exposure. And again, depending on what you need would depend on what level, and being aware of how you respond to rejection. So some people may not necessarily need this. You might need rejection in a different way. My rejection right now related to ADHD is more of, I'm not going to, if someone kind of says, hey, I'm struggling, then I'll reach out and say, what are you struggling with? How can I help you? Or what do I need to do? But I find it hard to reach out to somebody to say, hey, this is what I can offer you. Are you interested? So that's what I'm working through right now. So exposing myself to just doing that and celebrating when I'm doing it will help make it a lot easier for me to reach out to someone who hasn't said to me that they need help, but I know I can see that what I have to offer could help. So that's my goal, and that's what I'm working on, and that's my weekly goal, that's my daily goal, that's what I'm heading towards, to be able to make those connections, because that rejection is stopping me from being able to go even further. So that's my growing opportunity right now, and it's to expose myself to asking people that may not have necessarily said, yes, I want your help, or just say, hey, I'm struggling, I need help. But for me to be like, oh, well, I know this is what you're doing, and I know I have something that can help. Are you interested in this class? Right? So just different small things like that will help support you. And setting goals sets real, like, I heard, and I believe in this, as a visionary type of person that loves to make big goals, and some of them are like massively huge goals that I know are going to take a long time, and there's things that are like way above the glass ceiling type of things. But I like making really big goals, because the bigger the goals, the more energy, the more excitement, the more hype you have to it, and the more you're going to get attracting those things back, and the more you're going to align your path and journey to getting to those goals, right? If you stick to the small goals all the time, then you're going to be struggling with being able to connect and do that. So you're not going to be able to take as much risks, so you're not going to be able to do as much, and you're not going to have as much, or you're not going to push out to the rejection. So if right now you're struggling with feeling like the rejections, and you are afraid to message people, setting a goal of saying, I'm going to reach out to 100 people over this next month, and then breaking it up into smaller ones. So if you're like, okay, well, I'll message 5 people this day, right? So for the next 3 weeks, the next 20 days, if you message 5 people, you're going to hit 100 people. And then you can celebrate when you sent those 5 messages. You can celebrate if they said, especially if they said no, but if they said yes, then that's even bigger moment to write down for your achievement. So setting goals giving yourself bite-sized ones and really enjoying it is going to help push it a lot further for you. And you're more focused on the goals and the outcome as opposed to what people are responding to you, especially when you know there's going to be other people to talk to. So what are some actions you can take today? Check your energy and mindset anytime before reaching out to people. If you're doing it for business, make sure your energy is in the right spot. Make sure your mindset is in the right spot, that you're open and you're ready, and that you're not having any of the emotional stuff or any concerns or anything like that, because you're there in the moment and you're present with that person you're talking to. And even if it's over Messenger, they're going to know. Even if it's here, like if I know, again, my energy coming in was not the greatest coming into here. I was dealing with my son. He was having a meltdown. He was upset. He was frustrated. He was being very insulting. So I had a lot of stuff going on. I should have taken a couple of minutes to kind of set my mindset, to kind of calm myself down, to be ready or hype myself up or whatever I needed to do. But I know a lot of those scenarios kind of put me behind, so I just like, let's go forward. So I wasn't prepared, and that can impact stuff. So it's always important to make sure that you check those things before messaging people, before responding, because they can feel that. So if you're in a bad mood and you read a message, then you're more likely going to read it like it's in a bad way. So I had that situation a couple of days ago. Someone was in a kind of, they weren't very happy and they were in a bad mood. So they read the message in a bad way, and they responded thinking I was being passive aggressive, when that wasn't the case. When I was just kind of, actually, they were getting mad at me for talking about someone that I wasn't even talking about, because they read it wrong because they were in a bad mood. So, I mean, unfortunately, that is what happens. So it's very important when we're talking to anybody that we're paying attention to what our emotions are, what we're feeling, because someone could say something, and if we're not in the right mindset, we could take it wrong and we could assume what they're saying, right? So that was one of the 4 agreements. Sorry, distracted. The 4 agreements, one of the things is not making assumptions, right? So we don't want to assume stuff, and very often our mindset and energy can cause us to assume things. So we want to make sure that we're in a good, open, clear, grounding, present mindset before engaging, especially when rejection is going to be involved. So detaching from the outcome. So what's the worst that will happen if they say no? You don't get the sale from that person. Okay, move on to the next person, or maybe they said no now. Maybe you need to do a bit more in your content. Maybe you need to share a little bit better. Oh, I didn't change that. So you kind of need to do a little bit more potentially, to kind of go with that, or just kind of evaluate. So if you had a lot of no's, is something just not working? Or are you speaking to the wrong people? Or are you not speaking to the person that's connected with you yet? So just kind of detaching from that, and just not especially your own value. Like, someone saying no has more to do with them. And a lot of times when we're having conversations with people, the reactions and what we hear is more to do with that person and how they're feeling than it does with us. And that's unfortunate. Same thing, like I just talked about, if someone's in a bad mood, they're going to respond back. And I know I'd done that a couple of weeks ago. I was busy, tired, and then I was waiting for a meeting to start. They canceled it, but they didn't tell us that they canceled it. So I was kind of like, okay, fine, it's whatever, like, you canceled it. But it just didn't come to a really good outcome, because again, it was the conversations. I was kind of tired of waiting, and that person was tired of not feeling well, so it was not a very good conversation at all. But it happens, and we just kind of have to work on it and just kind of take ourselves back and out of it. And express emotions creatively through art. So if you are struggling with anger, sadness, pain, frustration, grief, the easiest way to let it go is through, and self-care is to let it go through art. So I love writing. It's one of my outlets. And if I'm feeling a little overwhelmed, and I know writing, again, depending on the emotions, depending on where you need to be, sometimes the emotions are too much for the creativity. So like doing the artwork, I guess it depends on how you're doing it. If you're just writing stuff just to do it, or if you're doing artwork just for the sake of doing it and let your imagination take over, it's a little bit different. But it's really good to be able to be creative as well, and it gives you that outlet for your brain to work. Role play and practice rejection. Role play with someone who's doing the same thing. So if you have team members, if you have someone on your team that's supporting you, if you have other coaches and mentors, or you have other people that are on the same journey, then you can role play with them and practice that, hearing the no's, or just maybe when you're around again, like, if you're traveling somewhere, someone's like, do you have a number? No. Do you want a plastic bag? No. Do you want upgrade your fries? No. Or when you hear people that say the smaller rejections, like when you're talking to your kids, hey, did you want to have chicken nuggets tonight for supper? No. Celebrate that. They rejected you. They did not want your idea. But again, we don't put our personal rejections into that because we don't care about the outcomes. Like, oh no, okay, well, either you're going to eat what I put there or we'll find something else that you want, right? So enjoy and celebrate those rejections because they're the small, easy ones that our brain are like, it's okay. So it makes it easier than when it becomes more about our products and our personal stuff. And stay active and do your self-care on a regular basis. If you're feeling a lot more the rejection than you normally do, then just kind of take a step to check yourself to see, did you do any self-care today? Because you should be doing self-care multiple times throughout the day. And were you active? Were you eating properly? Are you hungry? Right? So there's a lot of different things that would really impact us. So setting up a self-care routine and squeezing it into a schedule. I know I have a busy day. Very often I wake up at 5:30 in the morning to start my morning routine, and I'm busy right up until 9 o'clock at night. But part of my morning routine is my self-care stuff, and it's doing things to challenge my brain so I get uncomfortable, and it's my work, and it's squeezing in the 5 minutes here and there for breaks and breathing or getting active or whatever the case is. So I could go from 5:30 to 9 on a regular basis and be okay because I have the self-care routine set up in place. So knowing that you can put the self-care routine in place and do it personal for you, especially stuff that energizes you, makes you feel good, that's one of the key things to do for like hobbies or anything like that. And volunteering, right? To help you stay humble and to make sure to build your worthiness and stuff like that to kind of help feel good when you're able to give some of your time away to help support others. All right, so what does this have to do with you? So personal relevance, enhances your self-confidence. So when you're able to detach from the outcome and you're not worried if people say no to you because you know that there's going to be hundreds of other people that could be ready and they're waiting for you to come and speak to them, then that will enhance your self-confidence. You'll feel better, especially if you get more comfortable with saying no, then you're okay with hearing no. So then you're not going to go in with that like, "Oh, can you help me? Like, can I people please? Can I like you're not coming from a position lower. You're coming from a position of authority and credibility and being confident. And then people like that. People connect better with someone that's showing the confidence than someone who is struggling, right? Because if you're struggling and you're feeling bad, you're more likely going to respond to people in a more negative way and they're going to just kind of back off, right? So it really working on rejection handling will increase your self-confidence, will increase your self-esteem, but it also improves your relationships because you're not worried about people rejecting you. So you're going to have that better, open, vulnerable conversations. You're going to be able to connect better with your family members and friends or potential people and potential clients that are coming. And it allows you to be more authentic and it's okay to be vulnerable. So if you're not afraid of rejection, you're not going to hide away and you're going to be able to stand up and do more. So if you're not afraid of being rejected from people when you're doing a live video or a class, then you're going to come on and you're going to do more of them because you're not worried about what people are thinking of you. Like I said, I had a migraine today. I'm a mess. So I ended up going to chiropractor too, and I've got like that gel from ultrasounds on my face. So it's like in my hair, whatever the case is. And I'm just like, it's okay. I'm here. I'm doing me. This is where I am. This is the level that I'm at the moment. I'm doing the best that I can. And that's okay. Right. So it allows to have that better connection because you're more authentic because you're not, I was like, well, my hair isn't right. I don't have makeup on at the moment. So people aren't going to listen. They're not going to care because I'm worried about rejection. Then I probably wouldn't have come on. I would have been like, oh, I can't do this today. I'm going to do it another time. Right. But it's like, nope, I don't care. I'm coming on. Right. So it allows not being worried about the rejection allows you to have that authenticity and allow you to be vulnerable in front of people to say, hey, this is me. This is what I'm going to do. And this is what I can do to help you. Right. So it gives you that opportunity to kind of stand up there and do it. And a lot of times with rejection, what we're afraid of is what people perceive us, right? So again, we're worried about what people think and we're assuming what people are going to think before we even know what they're going to think. And we're worried about what potentially can happen. Are you going to like everybody? Is everybody going to like you? No. Are you going to have people hating on you? Most likely. Especially with business, you're going to get the people that are going to say stuff about you, especially if you hit a nerve Because if you're talking about something they're struggling with, again, that fight or flight reaction, they're either going to ghost and leave, or they're going to fight back and they're going to hate. Quick pro tip, haters, even though they really do hurt us and they can say a lot of mean things, they're still commenting on your work. They're still saying stuff. They're still waiting for you to post so that they could say something. So if anything, they're helping your algorithms. They're helping you get more visible in front of other people. So celebrate the people and be like, yes, try not to get triggered by them. Try not to respond back and forth into an argument or a conversation, because that reflects on you. But if you respond to them kindly and say, thank you, I appreciate that, or okay, I can understand, thank you for your whatever it is, or just delete the comment, whatever you need to do. But again, that kind of leads a lot of people from being afraid of being authentic and being themselves, because they're afraid of the haters that they know are going to come. And unfortunately, the more visibility you get, you're going to bump into people that are not going to be happy, because they see you where they want to be, where they wish they were, and they are not. So that will help you to kind of avoid the rejection and avoid doing things and showing up and being you and getting in front of the people that you need to get in front of. And when you're not worried about being rejected by people that are not going to like you anyways, and they're probably not going to work with you. They don't pay your bills. They're not going to work with you. They have nothing to do with you. So then you can just kind of thank them and move on. All right. And for the business wise, better risk taking. So if you're not worried about rejection, then you are able to kind of assess risks a little bit better, do better management. So, if I say, hey, you have to speak to 100 new people this month, then you have a better chance of taking that risk and talking to 100 people versus not doing it if you're worried about rejection. So it really helps. And then if you're talking to 100 people, you have a better chance of getting yeses and being able to support people, or learning, maybe what you think they want help with is not what they want help with, even though, and a lot of times people talk about this, like everybody needs something, but they want to pay for something else, right? And then you kind of learn what you need. So you might be like, everybody needs essential oils to help support their bodies, because using a product that helps with your immune system, everybody can use immune system support. So again, knowing that they need it doesn't necessarily mean someone's going to buy it because they need it. They're going to want to buy something because they want it. So what would make them want something for better immune? Well, are you tired of getting sick? Are you tired of having people at home and missing time at work and losing pay because you're sick, right? So you want to still go to work. You want to be able to have your kids not missing time at work because you're taking care of sick kids. So that want will help you with the need that they're needing. So again, that kind of helps with being able to adjust to those risks and knowing what you need to do. It helps with innovation. So when you're not worried about rejection, you get to learn, you get to grow a lot better, and that will help you with being more innovative, being more creative, being able to come up with some methodologies, some ways of doing your business or doing work, or kind of showing up in a different way, as well as leadership. So if you are doing this for yourself, people are going to watch you. They're going to be inspired by you, and they're going to be like, well, if this person can do it, like if Fiona can do it, I can do it. And then they're more likely going to take that courage and that step to go do it. And leading, I'm a big person for believing in leading by example and kind of showing people the vision. So I do that with my work right now, and we're moving in the right direction. We're moving in the way that I want us to move, because I'm leading by that example, and I'm showing up, and you're still connecting. You're like, okay, well, even though I'm afraid, I'm still going to do it. Right. So then they allows them to do the same thing. So for community, connection, and a legacy, it teaches others how to handle rejections. So again, if you're comfortable with rejections, you get used to them and you overcome them. It allows someone else, they can watch you and they can pay attention to what you're doing. They might be paying attention to how you're messaging them. So I've done that quite often. Like my struggle right now is reaching out to people that haven't said anything to me. So that's why I'm really liking cold pitches, because they're people that I've never spoke to. They're people that I haven't raised my hand and said, hey, I need help. Like I'm struggling with this. These are just people that are just going around finding my name somewhere in a group, and and they're messaging, and I used to be like, oh my God, why are you messaging me? You're ruining business for everybody. Everybody hates this. But now I'm looking at it being like, well, I can't do this. This is what I struggle with because of that ADHD rejection issue that I have. So now seeing people and understanding and appreciating that their cold pitches is them messaging me. I mean, I personally would never do it. I'm not encouraging people to do it if that's not your strategy. But I'm learning from how they're responding and how they're sending messages and how they're able to do it, that I'm just like, oh, like it's okay. Like I'm not reacting. I'm not angry. I'm not frustrated. I'm not yelling at them for messaging me. So it's allowing my brain to recognize that I can message someone and say, hey, I have this course that I think that would really benefit you. So would you be interested in it? Right? Because then I know I'll be doing it to people I've already had a connection with and I've already built that trust. So it makes it a little bit easier. But again, it helps you to learn to handle rejections and to be able to teach others to do the same thing. So these people cold pitching me is teaching me how to handle rejections, right? Even though they're trying to get my business. And it allows you to be a more stronger and resilient community. So if you have a team or you're building, helping support whatever clients or anything that you're doing, it helps you to get the community as a whole to be stronger and more resilient if they can get used and comfortable with handling rejections, because it's in every part. Nothing, every day, there's rejection every day, right? And being someone who shows up and keeps working. So my coach calls this staying power. And I think that's a pretty cool way of looking at it. But if you can handle rejection, then you're going to be someone that shows up and keep working. So you're building that grit, you're building that resilience, you're just going to keep pushing through. You're going to do the boring stuff, because being rejected means, I'm not saying that it's boring connecting with people. Some people love it, but for some business owners, that's not where they want to be teaching. They want to be sharing. They want to be doing classes and stuff. They don't want to be messaging people that potentially may not be someone that's going to work with them. So they might find that boring. So they're not going to do it, right? So depending on what part it is. So by being able to handle rejections, you're going to be able to show up on a regular basis. You're going to be able to keep working. You're going to be able to keep going past those no's until you get to the yes, until you get to that big yes that really skyrockets your business or your career and stuff, right? So it's going to be there, but you have to keep working in order to do it. And it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen, like some people, depending on their connection, their network, and their influence, it can happen a lot faster than others. But some people who are working on getting used to rejection, who are working on building their audience and speaking to people and finding the people that you are supposed to connect with you, it can take a little bit longer, and that's okay. But knowing that you can handle it and keep going will really be able to help support you for that. So even if there is rejection. All right. So if you guys, let me just remove that. If you guys have any questions, let me know. If you want some help, you want some support, just send me a comment, send me a DM. I'll be more than happy to kind of go through a bit more for rejection with you, go on a call if that's what you would like, to be able to kind of help you get through this, because being able to handle rejections is one of the key parts that everybody's afraid of, right? Like there's some sort of fear that you have when you first start doing it, but it's one of the key parts of growing your business, because you could find a way of being able to connect with 1,000 people, but it's not going to make a difference if you can't truly connect with them because you're too afraid of them saying no to you. Because again, out of 1,000 people, you might get 3 or 4 people that say yes. Maybe that's all you want for your business. Maybe you want more. Maybe you have to talk to 10,000 people in order to get the amount of people that you want. So it really depends on the work that you put in. And rejection is a skill. Like rejection handling is a skill. Absolutely. There's strategies. There's things you could do. Like there's a lot of different ways that you can be able to work on rejection handling. I shared some of them. If you want more details, whatever it is, just let me know. But I hope you guys have an incredible night. Next week, I am having my summit in this place. So be sure to tune in for that. It will be starting at 11:30 Eastern. And we're going to be talking about branding. We're going to be talking about rebooting your mind. So Charles, he talks about that. And again, a lot of what I talked about was the inner critic and being able to restructure, redirect. So a lot of it is rebooting how you think. Then we have Amy, who's going to talk about how to sell on autopilot. I mean, who does not want to make sales on autopilot, right? So be able to change your mind. Kim is going to be talking about productivity to be able to help support yourself. And Clifford is going to be talking more about the principles and discipline, and how to find time freedom through action. So by taking the discipline, by doing these works. So again, a lot of what we're needing and what we're talking about today is a lot of those things. And I'm going to be talking about communication. So if you guys are interested, make sure to check that out. It is in my Facebook group. I will be sharing it onto the YouTube as well. So you guys can check on that. There is a registration link if you want the workbook or to be able to get into the VIP access where you get unlimited replays. And I have 5 of the speakers put in, and Jenny is the one doing the branding. Sorry, I didn't say her name, but we put in courses. So it's a value of $4,500 that you could get for $147. So it's great value to be able to do replays, have a couple of workbooks and guides, as well as listening to these people speak and being able to learn more from their courses. So have an incredible night. I will see you guys next Tuesday here at 11:30 in the morning. And if there's anything you guys want me to teach, feel free to share it. I'll be happy to go through it with you guys. And I think I would be interested in doing more about the personal side of rejection as opposed to business side as well. So I'll probably teach that over the next couple of weeks. But if there's anything you guys want for support, let me know.